Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the DNA Sports Talk Show here on the Warrior Network. I'm Davis Gregory, and with me always is Andrew Cross. And today we're going to be covering the conference championships that occurred over the past weekend between the New Orleans Saints and Los Angeles Rams, and the Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. And we'll start off with the AFC Championship game. Both games went to overtime, both very exciting. We'll start off with that AFC Championship game. As I said, New England versus Kansas City. New England's headed to Super Bowl 53, winning their 8th AFC Championship, if I'm not mistaken, and beating the Chiefs 37-31 in overtime. Andrew, fantastic game from both teams, but we did see kind of bad refereeing in both games down the stretch. But initial takes of that AFC Championship game.
Well, I'll just talk about Tom Brady's dominance in general. This is the first time that Tom Brady has been, this is the first time that Tom Brady's been in the Super Bowl ever since Joe Flacco and Colin Kaepernick met in that Super Bowl. All the way back, I think that was 2008 maybe. That was a long time ago. And it's just to show the dominance of Tom Brady over and over and over again in the AFC. And in that game, the Patriots, their defense showed up, and I thought if the Patriots defense plays this well in the Super Bowl, they will blow out the Rams. But their defense in the second half, they kind of wilted Patrick Mahomes for 3 touchdown passes in the second half, total 295 yards. There were a lot of questionable calls. Earlier in the first half, Patrick Mahomes, when he dropped back on a pass on like a 3rd and 10, and he got hit right around the same shoulder area as he released the ball. And Tom Brady on that same overtime drive got hit the same place he was throwing the ball. Flag is called. I think the officials needed to be more consistent with the calls they made. Then there were 2 catches made by wide receiver Chris Hogan for the New England Patriots. One was ruled incomplete, one was ruled a catch. And they're basically the exact same thing, just in separate parts of the field. But you knew as soon as Tom Brady got the ball to start in overtime that
it was over.
It was over, and I think that kind of is too bad for Patrick Mahomes because he played his heart out and he had one of the best second halves ever in like the AFC Championship game history, but he never got to touch the ball in overtime, never had a chance to continue or extend that game. I think they need to look at maybe changing the college football version of overtime rules where you have a chance to keep the game going because we all know the Chiefs' defense. They were ranked second to last in total yards, so there was no way that Tom Brady was not going to score on that final drive. And I mean, you got to tip your hat to the Patriots just again and again, proving that they are the most dominant team in the AFC.
Right, and for me, it was just it felt like last year in the NBA playoffs where everyone counted LeBron out time and time again in that first round against the Pacers. He still won. Then the next round counted him out. They swept the Raptors. Then they went up against the Celtics. They counted him out. And then he finally got to the finals where he finally lost, but still people kept on counting him out, but he still managed to get by. And to see the same thing with Tom Brady against the Chiefs. Everyone thought the Chiefs were going to win that football game unless just a handful of people thought that the Patriots are going to win. And I will say, though, that the Chiefs' D Ford, who's had an excellent year for the Chiefs at the defensive end position, he kind of cost him the game on that offsides call. It wasn't even that he jumped off sides. It's such a simple thing. He lined up over the line of scrimmage.
And that play was an interception.
And exactly. And that would have ended the game. So the Chiefs did have an opportunity to win the game right there. And also, though, that roughing the passer penalty against the Chiefs, that's absolutely terrible. The fact that he just got tapped on the shoulder and that's roughing the passer.
I mean, here's what I think. If you're going to call that roughing the passer,
but it wasn't even on his throwing shoulder.
I understand that, but if you're going to call that roughing the passer, just make sure you call it both ways. Like call it one way and call it on the same team, call on the other team. But if you're not going to call it, just don't call it at all.
Right.
I mean, the NFL referees have to stay consistent.
Right, and I think that's just the big thing so far. And now we'll move over to the NFC Championship game. Probably one of the most controversial NFC Championship games of all time, and we're not even kidding about that. So Saints had a 13-0 lead on the Los Angeles Rams in the championship game and looked like they were just going to walk into Super Bowl 53, as we all expected them to. The Saints have had an incredible year with Alvin Kamara, Drew Brees breaking records, and they're just playing out of their mind like last year. They were playing some great football but got beat on the miracle of Minnesota against the Vikings. The Saints, though, with that 13-0 lead, did choke. Rams came back and kind of started making it a ball game. And then the Saints get down to the field with about, what did you say, under 2 to go?
I think it was about a minute. Okay, so there was about a minute and 40 left Rams had 2 timeouts, and it was a 1st and 10
Right.
when that call happened.
Right, and so Saints have the football in the red zone. Drew Brees takes snap, fires down the right side of the field. Nicole Roby-Coleman absolutely lays out the wide receiver. No pass interference call. Referee standing right there looking at it. No call. Saints have to settle for a field goal on fourth down there, and when they could have just chewed out clock and kicked the field goal, and then they probably would have won the football game. But
100%.
with that call, it left Jared Goff and the Rams some time to move down the field. Greg Zuerlein nailed a 48-yarder, and then in overtime, this is something that I know a lot of people don't really want to mention because they want to start off with the pass interference call, but the Saints had the ball to start overtime. Drew Brees had the chance to win the football game in overtime, but he didn't. I believe it was Dante Fowler who came.
Dante Fowler had a great game.
He came straight up the middle, nailed Drew Brees as he was throwing, and it resulted in Drew just throwing an absolute duck and intercepted by the Rams, and then Greg Zuerlein a 57-yard field goal to send the Rams to the Super Bowl. I think the Rams are a great team, but New Orleans deserved to win that football game.
I'm going to go the exact opposite. Sure, they got robbed. They would have won the game if pending a field goal try. They would have won the game had that penalty been called. But they had 4 drives in the fourth quarter and overtime, scored 3 total points.
Right,
They had a 13-point
exactly,
lead in the first half and choked it away. Their defense could not get stops in the fourth quarter, and their offensive line was getting just demolished by their offensive line, which has been so dominant all year long, just imposing their will, got dominated. Dante Fowler made key stops on third down over and over and over again. We saw Aaron Donald come in. He's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. We saw him come in and make a couple key stops. And the Rams did this all without Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley played. He had a touchdown,
Right, exactly.
but he had I think maybe 10 or 12 total yards in that game. C.J. Anderson had 44 yards, and he was their leading rusher. And Jared Goff, even though he didn't play stellar, their defense really kept him in it. And they pitched it wasn't a shutout in the second half, but they pitched a very, very, very defensive battle very, very good defensive battle in the second half. And Drew Brees, like you mentioned, he had a shot to win. He threw a pick, and the Rams took advantage. I think if you're a Saints fan, you can complain about the call, but still, y'all had a shot to win, and you couldn't take advantage.
Right, and I will say that, so for my point really, that pass interference call, yeah, it does change the game, and the Saints would win the football game if the flag is thrown there, but also, agreeing with your point, Saints had multiple opportunities to take that football game from the Rams, but they didn't, and they let them linger around, and it cost them. You know that referees are going to make mistakes in this day and age, and you have to be ready for that, and again, he had the ball to start overtime. Drew Brees, with the year that he had the ball to start overtime.
And he's one of the clutchest quarterbacks with arguably the best statistical passer in all of NFL history, and he throws a pick on the first play of overtime.
I mean, in my opinion, he probably should have thrown it away there when he saw Dante Fowler coming up the middle, unblocked as well, and really just throwing it up in the air and just praying somebody comes down with it. That's not Drew Brees.
I think he got hit too. He got hit while he was trying to throw the ball to Michael Thomas. But Saints fans saying there should be replay for pass interference. This is something I don't get. Are you going to replay every non-call then? Because as we know in football, there's holding on every play. So we're just going to replay every play. I think human error is a part of a football. The referees obviously messed up. Sean Payton said he called the NFL office and they told him that the call was missed. So I think that human error has got to be part of the game. The refs are going to miss some calls here and there, but still, that call cost the Saints the game. And I think they should have won, but they didn't deserve it with the way they played in the fourth quarter.
Right. So just final thought, though, that maybe if you want to move the penalty rule to, if you do end up reviewing penalties, maybe do it with under 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and you can set it up like that. But I don't think you need to review every penalty. But we want to thank you all for watching this episode of DNA Sports Talk Show, and we'll be back again with another episode soon. Thank you all.